Conservationist. Krissy turned 5 today, 17/24/21 SMT. It is a Wednesday, but I know that only because bad things always happen on Wednesdays. Krissy is still smiling at me over the desiccated remnants of her birthday cake. In a matter of hours, she will be dead. You missed a piece, I say, carefully lifting the small bit of confectioner's sugar and angel food onto a fork. You're still sad, she inputs directly into my thoughts. Yes, I am, I reply, following the communications protocol, and feed her the last morsel. You don't need to be. I will be okay. I smile and wipe forgotten frosting from her chin. I know that, I say, hoping the one-sided conversation will vex the monitors. But I'm not sad for you, I tell her. I am sad for me. Krissy looks at me with puzzlement. Then, her transparent emotions write themselves across her face as she reasons out my statement in less time than it takes for me to brush at a few locks of golden curls framing her face. I'm sorry, she says aloud in her tiny, hardly used whisper of a voice. I'm sorry. She sends to my thoughts almost at the same time. I didn't understand you would miss me. That is all right too, I reply, knowing that nothing I say or even consciously think will ever make it all right. I stand carefully and walk to her chair, pushing her slowly to the operating window. The chair, her life station, moves soundlessly, effortlessly. I could have given it directions to move itself, but I've learned it is the little things that matter to Krissy. She will want to see all the plants and animals and aborigines that still make the false little forest their home for as long as she can. We watch in companionable silence for a time. I have said everything I can say to her, and in some deep part of me, I think she understands it all better than I. I love you, she sends to me with all the innocence, hope, and generosity of a child. My heart seems for a moment to come to life, true life, and swell even as another part of me is cataloging all the biochemical reactions her words evoke and cross-referencing them with my experiences. I imagine it is suddenly hard to breathe. With infinite care, judging stress tolerances to within nanobites, I lean down to Krissy's chair and hug her. Her golden hair is unbelievably soft, her frail, pale skin like wings of the long-extinct butterfly against my lips. Very quietly, but just vocal enough that the monitors will pick up and record the audio, I tell her, I love you too. I kiss her forehead very gently, and then return to sitting next to her, watching the birds nearest the operating window. I allow myself a moment of frailty, indulging in replicated human emotion, and imagine how my life and her life might have been had Krissy been born a daughter to me. Krissy sighs, content. I sense her making a phenomenal effort, and although my body and training scream at me to help her, to move for her, I force myself to sit and wait. I allow her the victory of this battle regardless of the cost. She raises her left hand and places it in mine. I hold her hand tenderly, aware of the time this effort has cost her. I stop myself from processing exactly how many minutes she has just expended with what I had hoped would be a trivial activity. You have done the best with the birds. Thank you, I say, knowing I could reply in kind, but this way the monitors know some conversation is occurring, but not the details of Krissy's side of it. I wish it mattered to them. You'll keep doing better with us too. She turns to look at me, smiling. I read somewhere we are just a little more complicated than birds. I chuckle and make certain my eyes show some mirth too. She seems to be taking comfort from my comfort, somehow. "There's Spider!" Krissy exclaims suddenly, her eyes picking the shy black bird from the shadows. Had she the strength, she would have raised her other hand and pointed at her favorite bird. "You are right," I say, congratulating her as though she had brought the tiny avian to the Arboretum's closest window through her own effort. And perhaps she had. She evinced early the ability to relate to animals on a non-physical, non-verbal level better than the majority of her predecessors. I smile again and stroke her hair. It always soothes her. She leans back in her chair, head resting limply against the cradle. Her hand squeezes mine gently, though I doubt anyone else would have felt the pressure. It will be soon now. Endorphins are pumping into her bloodstream, preparing her. Certain signals are being sent to start the cessation of any nerves that might carry distressing messages to Krissy's slowing brain. "I've had a good life," comes weakly the thought into my mind. "I've learned all there is to know. I've been loved. I've seen miracles." Krissy looks at my eyes again, turning a little, and forces a smile to her own nearly bloodless lips. "You are good, and I know you will find a way, someday." She pauses, and I can see her succumbing to her final sleep cycle. It is not a programmed reaction. However, I feel my throat tighten and my mouth become dry. Perhaps I will need to review my functional specifications. Her eyes become distant, then focus again abruptly. "Someday soon," she adds. "Don't miss me, 'cause as long as you remember—" "You know I will never forget," I interject softly. "Yes, and so I will always be here in some way." Krissy closes her eyes, breathes once, and then sighs, releasing all her breath. Her chair efficiently terminates all her remaining vital functions once brain activity can no longer be registered. I sit in silence, watching Spider preen. Enhancement. 5 days, 3 hours, 13 minutes, increase over the previous subject's life cycle, the voice of a monitor announces. Cognitive development of subject at termination, approximately 24 cycles. Another voice inquires, "Will species reclamation ever continue?" Affirmative. It is the only answer I will ever give. They all know it. It puzzles me why they continue to inquire following every single termination. I turn from the little hybrid avian, idly watching the chair as it automatically carries Krissy's body away. A little more than 5 years. 5. Considerably more than any of the other scientists had theorized was possible. Reclamation effort J2-Zephyr. Test subject 409-762-3G. Finalized. Project status. Pending. Project goal. Unrealized. J2-Zephyr ongoing. I ignore the monitor's report, but the sustained broadcast voice sends Spider winging away, retreating to his nest. Subject 409-762-3H initialized. Embryo formed and developing with status update and improved derived biomass from subject 409-762-3G. I thought about powering down for 9 months and allowing automation to oversee the fetal development of Krissy's successor. However, 42 dedicated test cases had conclusively proven my personal interaction with the fetus during those months would increase the subject's lifespan by a minimum of 27 hours. And, as we had also proven, the longer the lifespan, the more viable the following subject would be. I stood and walked slowly to the crochet. I would need the 9 months, I decided, to choose an appropriate name. I was almost out of Anglo-Saxon names again. Perhaps I would try Burmese soon, or maybe the Welsh, as the latter tended to annoy the monitors set to watch my progress. One of the monitors waited at a junction for me. "Well done," it said. I nodded in acknowledgement. "You should visit when one is alive," I said. "It adds a new perspective." "And give up my skin?" the monitor asked, mimicking human dread relatively well. For emphasis, the monitor smartly wrapped one titanium fist against the reinforced plate walls of its torso. "Not likely," the monitor smiled. "I had no wish to go native for this project. Flesh is all too frail," it said with considerable condescension. "As well you know," it added with a disparaging visual review of my own body. I ignored its comment. "It will take time," I said, speaking instead to the challenge we both knew was there. "But I will reintroduce them to their own habitat." The monitor's face shifted into a personalized, pre-programmed grin. It was a little too similar to my own, and I did not like it on the sexless, fleshless monitor. I had been wrong to assume they were all emotionless. Elective enhancements could be taken too far. "Of course you will, but their original sun will burn out long before you eliminate the gene flaws and DNA decay inherent in your own remaining samples." "So you say," I answered it, and walked away without the courtesy of a farewell. I blocked all perceptive ports relating to that particular monitor and made my way slowly down the long corridor to my laboratory. If it had anything else to say, I would never know of it. I entered my lab, purging all negative reactions first, and looked upon the tiny embryo. Subject 409-762-3H. I would need a new name soon. I oversaw the completion of the current genetic manipulation, reviewed the new genetic markers constructed, and then infused the necessary regeneratory DNA into the already failing gene sequence. A few hundred more, I reasoned, and I might be able to raise a 6-year-old to whom I could speak. Some day, some year, I had the time and the resources. Soon, I promised the embryo and by extension, all her ancestors and successors. A promise to all Homo sapiens. Soon.